So one major financial planning aspect that many people should appreciate, and also that's I think it's going to become very important, is what if I become incapacitated in some way after retirement or even before retirement? Who is going to manage my assets? This is my whether it is a whether I have a child of special needs, or I don't have children, I'm single, not my whatever it is. This is the big problem. In many cases, the spouse may not know how to manage things, and spouse may not even know where the investments are. So I think we now have to seriously think about it. I think even with children, like we said, the children may not be in a position to drop everything off and come and help you. So I think what we should all be thinking about is who's going to manage our assets.
This episode is for you DINKs, SINKs, and single people. If you're wondering what the hell we're talking about, it's double income, no kids. Single income, no kids. These are families where the couples, either both of them bring an income and have no kids, maybe only one person is working and they have no kids. And of course, the singles out there who haven't even thought about marriage and kids and perhaps imagine a life after a lot of thought. As Pattu says in previous episodes, introspect about life, spend a lot of time with yourself. And in those moments, if you realize you want to live a life on your own, without family, without kids, this episode is for you. Pattu emailed us a few weeks ago saying somebody called Dharmik had emailed him. And I'm going to start this episode by reading out what Dharmik wrote in. For your Let's Get Rich with Pattu podcast, please can you make an episode on things that single and child-free people should take care of for their retirement? And isn't it funny, Pattu? As soon as I read that, it said single and child-free people, but immediately the word single and carefree came to mind, right? Additionally, given that many things are not to be taken care of for these people, like children's education, marriage, etc., how much is it that they need to save, invest to enjoy their life? Because the financial planning industry, and if you think about it, a large part of this show, Let's Get Rich with Pattu, is more biased towards married people and those who want to leave an inheritance for their children. So Pattu, my first question is, fantastic topic. We thought perhaps it'll be a short one, but the more we delved into it as a team, there's so many things that sprout up. But first question is, do you see this category of people increasing as the years go by, and why? A little bit of quick study that came up through Google as a search. Of course, there's some data from the West. And this category of people is growing by 7% per year of families or couples that don't want children.
So I'm curious to know what Dharmik's age is.
Yeah.
Because many people, when they're young, they go through this phase. My son is already saying, I don't want to get married. And he's only 14. And I went through that phase where I thought I won't get married. Then I went through the phase where I don't want to have children and so on. So these things change. So I think when we talk about people with no kids, I think we should talk about those who are fairly older, about 35 at least, or maybe even above 40. Then they're kind of more or less set in their ways and not much is going to change. Because before that, I think things can change, and I think they should first of all accommodate for that. And child-free is a very curious word. It can also be a little insulting to those who have children. Just yesterday, I have this tendency to keep stubbing my toe.
Okay.
I keep hitting my toe. I want to kick a ball and I'll hit the table. So yesterday I did that and I yelled out in pain. And my son was the first to come. And he said, then I realized, I have a fairly grown-up son now who understands that the dad is in pain, and that's the support system. So that support system is the primary missing component in a people who are single, who don't want to have children, can't have children, whatever the reason. So other than that, the question is, let's talk about the question first. His question is, what should be done differently? Financial planning wise, nothing. The math is the same. Okay. All our thumb rules are the same. The whatever inputs you're going to put into a calculator, it's all the same. Nothing is going to change. It's just that when you have two incomes, you can afford to invest more. Many people assume it's some license to spend more. Of course, they can spend a little more, but they should also take care of their investments and retirement planning. It's just as important or as anybody else. The primary change comes, of course, the people without kids don't have to worry about children planning, child planning, etc. and so on. But that is only a small component of it. The primary difference is they don't have a support system.
Right. As they age, you're saying.
As they age, even when they're young, if they're single and alone in some place else, I mean, other than where most of the relatives are, the parents are, if they suddenly fall sick, what will happen? That is the kind of problems that they should consider. See, I can buy 5 crores of health insurance, but if I collapse,
who's going to take you to?
Nobody knows that this guy has health insurance, or nobody knows. Nobody can, even if the people know they have health insurance, they should be able to locate the card or the policy number. So those are the kind of things that you need to be careful about. So I think, you have to make a plan. I think it's better for people without kids to consider some kind of retirement homestay. Of
Interesting.
course, yeah, they're gonna plan that well in advance. They're gonna say, I'm going to do that. I mean, it's first of all, it's mental preparation that's very important. They have to understand that they need to be there. Of course, they can. It's not. I mean, when I say retirement home, many people think of it as some kind of prison.
Oh, but they're getting really nice, Pattu. As you know, as the days go by, there are. I see a few friends who are investing in these things for their parents, because even though these parents have children, the world is a place now where you don't know if the children will be with you, right? It's not that they broken relations with you. It's not like they have fallen out of love with you, but the practicality of it all, they might be in another city, in another country. So these things, and they're starting to become really, really comfortable, but super expensive. I cannot even start to consider it for my parents. Right. Of course, there are more affordable ones wherever you go. But this is a very interesting thing which I didn't think about in the prep for this episode. But dialing back a little bit, Pattu, right? I see this category of people growing. They have very solid arguments. They say, is this a kind of a world you want to bring children into? Just look what's happening in the Middle East. Look what's happening in the West. Look what's happening in our country, where politics is all about religion, etc., etc. Right? And they are convinced, and full respect to them, right? They start off their life journey knowing what they want. But I must give a caveat to that as well. I have some friends who are couples who are very sure about this, but then 10 years later, they change their mind, right? Not only that, I have friends in their 40s now who've had their first kid. So it does change, as you go through life, as Pattu started off this episode saying, even if you're sure at the start, you never know where life takes you. Or by mistake, you could have a kid, right? A pleasant surprise or whatever it is you want to talk about. But in these cases, let's start talking about these thumb rules. Pattu, you are very clear about if you're spending X, let's try and put away 75% of X, or, X for retirement. So my first question is, clearly it's much easier for these people, right? For double income, no kids.
It depends on their expenses, depends on their lifestyles.
And I guess that's what I'm angling towards.
Yeah.
When you have no kids, is there a tendency to spend more?
I think so, because they have to go out, because husband and wife sitting in the same house all the time, there's gonna be friction for sure. They have to socialize. There has to be new gossip on. There's a saying that marriages are held together by gossip.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah. You'll know as you age. So it's held together by gossip. So you need, if you don't have your children to focus on your energy and time on, then you need to socialize. You need to go out and meet people, and so it will definitely mean more spending for sure. So that's fine. I mean, you have to do it. You have to do it, and some people want to, some people don't. That's fine. But whatever it is, don't put the retirement planning, to the back burner. Always.
That's what I was angling at as well, right? Do you feel double income, no kid couples or single income, no kid couples lack motivation for retirement planning? Because for me, my natural thing is, it's probably one of the things I'm most motivated about, because I have kids. I look at them every day and I start worrying about the future, right? So it's a constant thought process, which I assume couples with kids don't have. So do you feel there's a lack of motivation, and then they think they can do it easily because they don't have those expenses, but then they start later and then they don't take it seriously enough?
Start later for sure. I know that when they're young, they don't take it so seriously. They just want to live it up, live it up, live it up. But after they cross 35, 40s, then they kind of, dial down a little bit and start thinking too much of about retirement and so on. So that shouldn't happen. That balance is always better. But of course, if the income is large, like we discussed yesterday in previous episode, they can always catch up later if they realize it. But why give the chance to that? You can always balance it. So that is the thing, and you should build some kind of support system, some neighborhood guy who can come check in on you, or that is the what are you? I mean, which means you have to give back to the community as well. I mean, it's you can't just expect your neighbors to help you without
Wow, what a thought. Yeah.
you help. So you have to be a person who is known as a good Samaritan in the community. That's when all these happens. You miss the people who come to your household for working, the household help, or you must have good relationships with them. In many situations, I know people, it is the household help who have taken them to the hospital, rushed them to the hospital. And the guy, the guy who sells vegetables, the guy who, the iron wala down the road, those are the kind of guys, the auto stand nearby. You must be friends with everybody. They should all be, they should miss you if they don't see you out.
And they should want genuinely to help you.
Exactly.
When the time is...
Exactly. And this is very important because, I've said this before, building relationships, not only with, our family, but with the community, it's crucial as we age. Because then we need them to come to our aid. And the other point is that whatever we are talking about also applies to children with parents with children of special needs.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a different...
Yeah, that is an unimaginable for many of us. But they go through real problems because they are aging, their children become major, but they're still dependent on their parents as they were when they were born, almost the same extent, and not much has changed. So which means that they have to create some kind of a support system for them, as well as some support system for the parents. So there are two kinds of support systems in place. So one major financial planning aspect that many people should appreciate, and also that's, I think, it's going to become very important, is what if I become incapacitated in some way after retirement or even before retirement? Who is going to manage my assets? This is my whether it is whether I have a child of special needs, or I don't have children, I'm single, not my, whatever it is, this is the big problem. In many cases, the spouse may not know how to manage things, and spouse may not even know where the investments are. So I think we now have to seriously think about it. I think even with children, like we said, the children may not be in a position to drop everything off and come and help you. So I think what we should all be thinking about is who's going to manage our assets later. So there are two ways to do it. One is we trust a financial advisor to give us the direction, and we ask somebody to do it for us, which of course there'll be some friction in all this process. The other process is via something called a living trust, LIVING, living trust. And this is you create a trust in which you take your assets and you put it in the trust. So it's no longer your assets anymore. Then you will become the trustee of, now your spouse can be the co-trustee, and then you can have a trusted relative also as a co-trustee. So in case you are not able to handle the assets, you can stipulate that the co-trustee should take the advice of a SEBI registered fee only advisor, and they will manage the assets for you. Of course, the taxation will be clubbed with the tax of the assets of the trust will be clubbed to your income and so on. There are different ways to do it, but there is a way out.
So, just to keep on this topic of living trust, Pattu, do I start a living trust today itself because I'm planning for the future, or does it kick in on my demise or when the time is right? For example, if I have a kid with special needs, when does that living trust kick in? Because there's something that stuck in my mind, which you said was they're no longer your assets. So that's something you have to be careful about. How does it all work?
So I think let's say I have we have a couple with a special child,
Right.
and that couple is kind of hit 50.
Fair enough.
Right, and that means they are close to retirement themselves, and they would need to start building a foundation for somebody to take care of the child after their time,
Right.
or if they are not well and so on. So then they will have to take a part of their corpus and put it in a trust in the name of the child.
Got it.
And they will have to designate a trustee, a co-trustee, who will manage the assets for the lifetime of the child. So that is the kind of arrangement so that money is no longer yours, it's part of the child, it's part of the trust, child's trust. This is the way in which the big guys escape taxes and so on. They're pushing, there are many ways to do it. Partly you can escape tax because it's trust and so on. You can say it's expenses for the trust, blah 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 and so on. We don't want to get into that kind of a angle here. But the point I'm trying to make is that we should think along those lines, and there are ways to do it. So we have somebody called a chartered wealth manager, who is an expert in estate planning. Just like you have a chartered accountant, a financial advisor, you now have a chartered wealth manager who can set up the trust for you and who will take care of the running of the trust.
Wow.
So, of course, these things comes with expenses and so on. It's probably not for everybody, but it's only for those who have assets, significant assets. They can manage to do this. So that is something that we should really take care of and at least think about. I'm not saying go do a starter trust now. Of course, it need not be done now, except for those with special children and kids with special needs, and when they're old, then they will have to 50 plus or so. Then I think it's a proper time to at least start a trust for their kids.
Yeah.
For the other guys, maybe afterwards, but think about it.
But it's a very basic idea, I think, Pattu, that you perhaps didn't realize is basically if you're just a couple with no kids, or even a single person who's not planning to get married or have kids, I think if you feel like the expenses are lower for you, you have to realize that your expenses may be higher as you start aging, and which is something you have to start planning for right now. It could be an old age home, somebody takes care of your assets, etc. So I think this is something that couples with no children have to start seriously thinking about, right? Because the sooner you do, the better it is. Because all the old age homes that I know of seem to be really kind of expensive. I think that's a category that's opening up as well.
Yeah, so when we talk about old age homes, there are two kinds of places. One in which they're kind of a hospice care, where the patient is actually, there is a patient, and that is very expensive. But the other option is you buy a property which is part of some kind of community and so on, but where you're free to come and go whatever you want and so on. That is one thing to do. Or there are many people I know who will build relationships with an employee, and that employee takes care of them, and they have that kind of a support system. That is also possible. I'm just saying, think about it. I'm not sure. Most people who are watching this who fit into these categories, probably young. They're probably 35-ish, at max 40-ish. So but I'm just saying, think about it. And every year, once a year at least, think about it and say, what can I do? What should I do? Or if you have a financial advisor, talk with them. And so that's what I'm saying. The dialogue is very important, because you can't take it for granted. You
Absolutely.
Can't take your
a very
health for
serious
granted.
thing.
That is the point.
Yeah. Coming back to other personal finance issues, but to that change perhaps for couples with no kids and single people with no kids, let's talk about insurance for a bit, right? Um, how does insurance change? I'm talking about term insurance as well as medical insurance for a couple with no kids who are both earning and where there's a couple with only one earner. How does it change?
Um, Term insurance is, see, I would say just get it. I mean, if you're single, you don't need term insurance.
That's what I want to say. So if you're single, forget term insurance.
You don't need it, but your parents may need your support. Then you would need term insurance. If you don't have parents, or if you're sure that your parents are well off, you can still get yourself a term insurance policy and write the charitable trust as a nominee, because it's peanuts, right? I mean, it doesn't cost much. 1 crore of just say that, or you can give it to your relatives. There'll be some relative of yours who would need the money. You would always think about, so it's a fairly easy insurance to get, and you can always think in those lines. But I mean, if you're married, then each person can be the nominee of the other, so you can have 2 policies and so on. So that's possible.
In a couple where there's only one single earner, can that single earner buy 2 separate term policies where she or he pays for both policies? Is that allowed? Is that done?
From what I hear, insurers don't like, people who don't like to insure those who don't have a job. Of course, there is a homemaker insurance and so on. There are policies for that, but they will they generally don't like it. They like to insure people who have an income. That's the general impression I get. But they also don't need it. I mean, if you're not earning, you don't need a insurance to replace it, in principle.
That was my next question. How do insurers look at this category of people, right? Are they happy to insure them? Are they resistant to insuring them? Why is it that they prefer people who only have an income? I mean, the point is only the risk that they're dealing with is when the person passes away, right? So what's it got to do with earning and not earning?
It's a little bizarre. I mean, things have gotten better. I think there are homemaker policies around, but my feeling is that the impression I get, it's a little bit harder to get because they always ask you for income proof and so on. They want to know, because that is the way they decide the human value. Human life is assigned a value, which is arbitrary, obviously, but the human life is assigned a value based on income.
That's crazy.
It's of course is arbitrary, but that's one way to do it.
This is reminding me, Pattu, of a question we received from somebody called Parsi Bawa, right? And I'm going to read it out. It perhaps has nothing to do with this episode, but since we're on this topic of insurance for non-salaried people, I thought I'd ask it, Pattu. It is so good to see the finances for a freelancer being discussed. So his comment came on our freelancer episode. The thing is that just like other things discussed in this video, this too is largely geared towards salaried individuals. He's talking about term insurance, right? They need to give 3 years income proof, salary slips, etc. Without it, or if the income has been fluctuating as it does for freelancers like himself, they're very reluctant to offer and they give a much smaller cover, right? He's saying in his case, they gave him a cover which was even lower than the corpus he had already saved. So thank you for sending this in, Parsi Bawa. But what do you feel about, term insurance, and why is this happening in this entire world of term insurance?
No, for those with business income, if you show ITR data, and if that is fairly constant, they will give you a good sum. That is not a problem. But if you're just starting out, I have a feeling this person is fairly young and is just starting out, so his income fluctuates quite a bit. That's not normal for a freelancer, isn't it? And therefore, the insurers, would also assume that he cannot, pay premiums in future, or he's not insurable. But of course, he can always buy another policy later on when he things stabilize a little bit. So that's fine.
Okay. Quick, perhaps a minute or half a minute on medical insurance, Pattu. How does it change for couples without kids, or both earning, only one person earning, etc.? Is it okay to take a lower cover?
No,
Where?
no, no. No. It's more or less the same. If you can afford it, you can even take a higher cover, like along the lines of what we talked about in the previous episodes. But my thing is that people around you should know that you have this, and you should always have some kind of see, these guys can have special needs as well. For example, they may be allergic to some drugs,
Right.
and they may have pre-existing conditions. So that kind of data should always be, there's a name for it, I forget. That should be, you should always have it in your pocket or on your mobile phone or somewhere. People should be able to reach this, and the people around you should know. Then only they can help you. Otherwise, it'll be a bit of a problem in hospitals and so on. So that is the main thing. It all boils down to that support thing.
From these insurance discussions, how about simple stuff like having bank accounts? What is, and this applies to even married couples with kids, for example, right? How is it that you look at bank accounts and investments, right? Should each person, wife and husband, have a separate bank account and then one joint account? Do you have any thoughts about this entire world? Because it's a question that has come up from the team.
I would say a double income, I would say separate bank accounts work best. Separate bank accounts, and then you form a pact of what share is going to come out of whose salary for managing the expenses and the investments, etc. And then you stick to that pact. That's all. And you can also have investment separate. That's also better. You can, of course, you can have this. The spouse as the joint holder, the second holder. That is better than nomination, etc., and so on, because the transference of units becomes easier later on. But as long as this understanding is there, it's separate is better.
Pattu, quick question on the difference between single income versus double income couples in terms of wealth creation, right? Clearly, it's going to be slower for single income, right? Is then, in that case, the only solution creating multiple income streams?
Slower, it depends on expenses, I would say,
Right.
lifestyles, and also the income levels. So single income, large income can manage, easily manage. So I think, see, the way we should look at multiple income streams is this: I need something to occupy my time with after retirement. So I need to give back to the society, or I need to feed my inner self, my creativity, my longing for creativity, or pursue my passions. If you focus on that and think about multiple streams of income, I think it will be a lot more productive for you personally. When people say multiple streams of income, it's not as if you're going to get it next month, right? That is that feeling that many people have been wrongly led to. That is wrong. So from that sense, everybody should go for multiple streams of income is what I would say.
All right. On that note, closing this episode for dinks and sinks and single people, but urging you to write in with your particular questions, right? It's amazing how Pattu came up with this angle of couples with kids with special needs. We didn't think of that. But I think, kul milake, the main thing you should think about is that if you don't have kids, you should even more seriously think about what life is as you age, who will take care of you, and how you start to plan for that right now. Whether it's a caretaker, whether it's an old age home, whether it is all kinds of situations and scenarios. Perhaps right now it feels like it is cheaper to live your life and you have more to spend and more to invest. But what Pattu is trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pattu, with your final words, is it is time to start thinking about it, even if you do not have kids right now and do not plan to have kids in the future.
Absolutely. I think so. Yeah. And young people should not assume that this is how life's going to be, and because their stance is always going to change. Every time I've learned about life has taught me new things and has changed me. So maybe when you're 40 plus and above, then things are going to be a lot more stable. So make room for such things to happen. So
that's interesting. Whether it's mentally and philosophically, but also financially, keep room for something, a happy mistake happening in your future at some point. On that note, thank you for yet another episode, Pattu. We'll see you on the next episode of Let's Get Rich with Pattu.
Bye.